India is not just a country on the map. It is a civilizational world of its own, stretching from the Himalayas to the Indian Ocean, from deserts and river plains to tropical islands and megacities. Today, it is the most populous country on Earth and the world's largest democracy. But those modern labels only hint at the scale of its story. India's geography helped make it both connected and distinct, bordered by Pakistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, while facing the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the wider Indian Ocean. For thousands of years, this position made the subcontinent a crossroads of trade, belief, language, conquest, and cultural exchange. To understand India, you have to see it as a place where ancient continuity and constant reinvention exist side by side. The human story of India begins far before kingdoms, scriptures, or cities. Modern humans arrived on the subcontinent from Africa no later than 55,000 years ago. For most of that immense span of time, people lived as hunter-gatherers across very different landscapes. Because communities adapted to mountains, forests, coasts, and plains over thousands of generations, the region became extraordinarily diverse. That diversity is not only visible in appearance or culture, but also in languages, food traditions, social customs, and local identities. India's later history often looks like a sequence of empires and religions, but underneath those famous chapters is a much older foundation, countless communities living in relative isolation, gradually shaping one of the most varied human regions on Earth. Settled life began to take root around 9,000 years ago near the western margins of the Indus River basin. Over time, these early agricultural communities developed into the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the great urban cultures of the ancient world. Its cities were carefully planned, with drainage systems, standardized weights, craft production, and long-distance trade. Unlike later Indian history, the Indus world left no clearly understood royal biographies or religious texts that we can easily read today. That mystery makes it even more fascinating. It shows that complex urban life existed on the subcontinent long before many of the cultural forms now associated with India had fully emerged. India's story did not begin with a single scripture, dynasty, or invasion. It began with deep layers of settlement, trade, technology, and urban organization. By around 1200 BCE, an early form of Sanskrit had entered northern India from the northwest. Sanskrit became the language of hymns that preserved some of the earliest expressions of what would later develop into Hindu traditions. At the same time, older Dravidian languages remained especially strong in the south, while linguistic and cultural patterns shifted across the north. This period was not a simple replacement of one people by another. It was a long transformation in which ritual, language, social hierarchy, and local traditions interacted. By around 400 BCE, caste had emerged as an important part of Hindu society. But this was also the period when Buddhism and Jainism arose, offering alternatives to inherited social rank and emphasizing different paths of discipline, ethics, liberation, and community. India's early political landscape was often fragmented, but powerful states did emerge. The Maurya Empire created one of the first large political consolidations across much of the subcontinent. Later, the Gupta period became associated with major achievements in art, literature, architecture, mathematics, and religious thought. These eras are often remembered for creativity and intellectual confidence, but they were not golden ages for everyone. Social hierarchy hardened in important ways, the status of women declined in many contexts, and ideas of untouchability became more organized. This is one of the recurring patterns in Indian history. Extraordinary cultural achievement existed alongside deep social inequality. The same civilization that produced philosophical brilliance and artistic refinement also developed structures that restricted millions by birth and status. South India followed its own powerful historical path. Its kingdoms were not simply peripheral to the northern plains. They built maritime networks, temples, literary cultures, and trade connections that reached across the Bay of Bengal. Dravidian language scripts and religious ideas traveled into Southeast Asia, influencing courts and cultures far beyond the subcontinent. Meanwhile, India's coasts became places of religious arrival and coexistence. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism all established communities on the southern and western coasts in the first millennium. This matters because India is sometimes imagined only through conflict between religious blocs, but its history also includes long periods of commercial contact, migration, and local accommodation. Many faiths did not merely arrive as armies. They also arrived as traders, refugees, families, and neighbors. Early in the second millennium, Muslim armies from Central Asia began to enter and control parts of northern India. The Delhi Sultanate brought northern India into the broader networks of medieval Islamic power, scholarship, trade, and architecture. This did not erase older Indian traditions, but it changed the political and cultural landscape. Persianate court culture, new military systems, urban centers, and religious institutions became part of northern Indian life. In the south, the Vijayanagara Empire developed a long-lasting composite Hindu culture, showing that regional powers continued to adapt and respond creatively. In the Punjab, Sikhism emerged later as a distinctive religious tradition that rejected institutionalized religion and emphasized devotion, discipline, and community. India was becoming a layered society where traditions contested, borrowed from, and reshaped one another. The Mughal Empire brought another major transformation. For roughly 2 centuries, Mughal rule supported economic expansion, relative peace across large territories, and a remarkable architectural legacy. The Taj Mahal is the most famous symbol, but Mughal influence went far beyond monuments. It shaped administration, painting, gardens, cities, cuisine, and elite culture. The empire also depended on alliances with local rulers and social groups, meaning it was never simply foreign rule imposed from above. Yet like all empires, it contained tensions, succession struggles, regional resistance, religious debates, and uneven control. As Mughal power gradually weakened, new regional powers rose. Into that changing environment came a commercial force that would become political, the British East India Company. What began as trade would become domination. The British East India Company slowly expanded its rule, turning India into a colonial economy while also consolidating much of the subcontinent under one imperial structure. After the rebellion of 1857, direct British Crown rule began in 1858. Colonial rule introduced railways, legal institutions, modern education, and new forms of public life, but these changes served an empire built on extraction and hierarchy. Rights promised to Indians came slowly and unevenly. Economic patterns were redirected toward imperial needs, while Indians increasingly encountered modern political ideas through schools, newspapers, associations, and law. This contradiction helped produce nationalism. The British created systems that unified and administered India, but those same systems also gave Indians tools to criticize empire, organize politically, and imagine self-rule. India's nationalist movement became the first major anti-colonial movement within the non-European British Empire and influenced struggles elsewhere. After 1920, it became especially associated with non-violent resistance, mass mobilization, and moral pressure. Leaders and ordinary people used boycotts, marches, civil disobedience, and political organization to challenge British authority. But independence did not arrive as a clean triumph. In 1947, British India was partitioned into 2 dominions, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Partition triggered mass migration and large-scale violence, leaving deep trauma across families and regions. This moment shaped modern South Asia profoundly. India was born as an independent state, but its birth came with displacement, grief, and unresolved conflicts, especially over Kashmir, which remains disputed with Pakistan and China. In 1950, India became a federal republic governed through a democratic parliamentary system. That achievement was remarkable because India was not a small, wealthy, culturally uniform country. It was poor, recently partitioned, multilingual, multi-ethnic, and deeply unequal. Many observers doubted whether democracy could survive there. Yet India built elections, parties, courts, states, and institutions capable of holding together an enormous population. Its democracy has always been noisy, imperfect, and contested, but that is partly the point. India's political system has had to absorb regional demands, linguistic identities, religious tensions, caste movements, economic grievances, and mass participation. The result is one of the most complex democratic experiments in history, a republic trying to turn civilizational diversity into constitutional politics. Since independence, India has changed at astonishing scale. Its population grew from 361 million in 1951 to more than 1.4 billion by 2023. Literacy rose from 16.6% to 74%. Nominal per capita income increased from just $64 annually to more than $2,600. The economy became one of the world's major growth stories, with information technology, services, manufacturing, and a large expanding middle class. India also reduced poverty significantly. But progress has not erased every contradiction. Inequality has increased, gender inequality remains serious, child malnutrition persists, and air pollution has become a major public health problem. India is a nuclear weapon state with high military spending, while still facing basic development challenges. Its rise is real, but uneven. India's future will be shaped by how it manages scale. No other democracy has to govern so many people across so many languages, religions, regions, and income levels. Its land is megadiverse, with 4 biodiversity hotspots and wildlife traditions supported by protected habitats. But environmental pressure, urban growth, climate stress, and pollution will test that inheritance. Its economy has global momentum, but it must convert growth into broader opportunity. Its society has ancient depth, but it must keep negotiating questions of equality, identity, and pluralism. India is not easy to summarize because it contains too many histories at once, ancient and modern, spiritual and technological, democratic and hierarchical, prosperous and struggling. That complexity is not a flaw in the story. It is the story. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.